Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here with the one and only and my dear friend, Wolfgang Hooper. Brother, since we met just a few short months ago, I want to say I admire you. But let's tell the world about you today. Give a little brief synopsis of where you're from, what you're doing, and what brings you here.
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me, Rich.
Absolutely.
This is awesome. This is my first podcast, so bear with me. But my name is Wolfgang Hooper. First off, I'm a husband to a beautiful wife. That's my motivation, keeps me in check. She's an awesome woman. I'm a father to 4 beautiful, crazy kids. They keep life interesting. Business owner, and born and raised Placerville, California, so not too far from here. And just trying to make a dollar and make my little mark on the world.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So when we first connected at our investor mastermind at the Kings game, man,
Yep.
You shared with me a lot about your background and where you are today. So I'd like to kind of go back to the early stages of young Wolfgang and tell the world where you're from.
Okay, so where I'm from.
Yeah.
So where I'm from is a family of basically drugs and alcohol and just kind of broken family. It was a pretty rough childhood, you know. I don't know. I mean, it was. So we'll dive into it a little bit. So, mom and dad were both drug addicts from the day I was born, right? And then they both split when I was about 5 years old because of, obviously drugs and alcohol, and there was fights and all of the whole 9 yards, right? I ended up going to 17 different schools from elementary through high school. So there was never like stability. We didn't never own a house. We didn't, it was just kind of, I think one year I went to 3 different schools in like 4th grade or something like that.
Wow.
So I was never really able to build a foundation, and just never had that stability in life. So I think that's one of my motivating factors to this day. But it was a tough childhood. So let me give you an example. At some point in my childhood, we were so bad. It was like living in a third world country, but right here in America, right? We had a dirt lot at one point, like I would say probably at the bottom of the bottom, right? I was about from 6 years old to probably 7th, 8th grade was the worst years. I remember, like, pallets are?
Yeah.
Okay, so as a 8-year-old kid, I remember putting pallets on my bicycle handlebars and riding those home, balancing them on my bike to get $4, to eat. Like, my dad he didn't work. He just, he tried to hustle and make ends meet, but didn't really work out. And, I was jumping in the Frito-Lay chip factory dumpster to get chips, and, we'd come home with boxes of chips, or go to the bread factory and get their leftover bread that they were going to throw out, and we'd, eat that for a week. I jump over the Salvation Army fence for clothes.
Right.
Because we didn't have washer and dryer. We just lived in a van and a bus and, all these different crazy situations. But we didn't have a washer and dryer, so it was easy to go to the thrift store, jump over the fence, grab as many bags of clothes as we could, throw them back over, ride those home on our handlebars, and hope that we were going to get, clothes that fit us. Sometimes it'd be all baby clothes. Sometimes it'd be all women's clothes. And you're like, damn, we didn't have time to dig through all the clothes, the cops are going to get us or whatever. Those were some pretty rough years, So, that's a little taste of kind of growing up.
Right. And we're right here in America, and you're going through all that, right?
Yep.
And like you said, 17 schools.
17 schools.
Man, that's one a year. from the time you're born,
Oh, from
the time you're born to 18, let alone when you actually start going to school 4, 5, 6 years old, right? Till you're 18.
Yep.
Man, so you didn't have any stable friendships, any stable teachers in your life, or
not really stable friendships. I can say that my dad would fall off every 3 or 4 years, and he'd lose us to the system, to CPS and that. Now, thankfully, my grandparents love them to death, and they've passed on, but they always took us in. Whenever that situation would happen, we would go live with them. My dad would get his stuff together. We lived with them for 6 months to a year. So those going back, and they lived in Placerville. So this, I'd go to Chico. I'd go live with my dad in Chico, Auburn. I mean, we lived all over, right? But we would always end up back in Placerville every 3 or 4 years with the grandparents. So some of those relationships that I had built, in first grade, I go back to that, that school in fourth grade. I knew some of those kids, so I was able to kind of build on some of those relationships.
Yeah, man.
Growing up, but it was pretty.
Yeah,
it was a wild ride.
Yeah, you grow up through that, and you turn 18, and what happens next?
So unfortunately, I knew I wanted to change the situation, but I ended up going down the same path that my dad, that I seen growing up. Started hustling and trying to do the thing with the marijuana and yada yada whatever drugs at a young age, like 16. Kind of followed in my dad's footsteps because that's what I seen, that's what I knew, right? And I was trying to make money, make it happen. And that ended up going down a darker path, more drugs and alcohol, and ended up 3 DUIs by the time I was 21. And one day I woke up and kind of looked in the mirror and said, man, this isn't you. Like, snap out of it. Like, what are you doing? And 22, I went sober, cold turkey, went sober for 5 years, lost a lot of friends that I thought were friends.
Yeah, the
right?
friends. Yep.
And I just kind of did me and catapulted my life in the direction that I knew I wanted to go.
So that voice you heard, your internal calling, right, saying, hey, man, this isn't you.
Yep.
Did you always have that and just neglected it for a little bit, and then finally, after your third Dewey, we're like, hey, you know what? The buck stops here. I have to do something.
100% I always had it. Actually, going back to it, just driving home pallets on my bike, right? At 6 years old, that was my first time I could remember actually working, and I was shoveling snow. We lived in Massachusetts for about 9 months. My mom tried to get us out of the situation, brought us back there, and I ended up shoveling snow at 6 years old and made like $39 in a day. And it was like, wow, okay, I could do this, And I actually took that $39. They were having some kind of rummage sale or something at our school, and I went and bought a bunch of pots and pans. You were able to fill a bag, right? Or this brown bag, like as much as you could fill it for like $1 at the school. And so I ended up buying a bunch of pots and pans and stuff for my mom. Brought her home. Yeah,
that's awesome.
It was funny. But yeah, so I brought home all these pots and pans for mom, and she was probably passed out on the couch. But anyways, yeah. And then from there, at 8 years old, I had like a lawnmower, and I never really felt like I was a kid. I felt like I grew up pretty quick, and
well, you're in those very early stages in life. Just can't you come out into the world and life already smacked you.
Yeah.
It already said, hey, I'm here, and you're gonna have to deal with me forever now. Yeah. That's what life does, right? And it hits us at different parts and different stages. For everybody's different in their lifestyle, where they come up. Are they coddled their entire life, or are they selling pallets for $4 to get a bite of food?
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's important for a lot of people to hear, is like, yeah, we are fortunate to live in this country, right?
Yeah.
And where you are today, right? It's not where you've been through, it's where you're going, right?
Yep.
And you mentioned your wife and your kids helping you grow and continue down this path, man. You have your brokerage, you have 22 agents, you have a few businesses, right?
Yep.
And you pulled up today, and your trailer on the back of your truck has cabinets you're replacing in one of your rentals
Right.
for a new tenant, right?
Yep.
And so it doesn't matter where we start, it matters where we want to go.
100%.
And I love that your observation, your self-awareness was like, hey, I'm actually not going to go down that same path. It took a little bit, took a couple lumps or 3, you know. And was your wife a part of your world during the DUI stages?
Yeah, so I met her in my party stage, and she was there for the first probably year of my partying, and it pretty much almost ruined our relationship. But she was a big she right now she keeps me in check. Like she was a big part of getting me out of the lifestyle and just kind of motivating me to do better, and you know.
Yeah.
So I married her, and we've been together for 18 years and married 12.
Wow.
So.
And 4 beautiful kids.
4 beautiful, crazy kids.
Crazy kids. Well, if they're coming from your cloth, right? If they're cut from the same cloth as you, right? I can imagine, like, and you might have some conversations with them later on. Hey, this is what our family dynamic used to be. Here's what addiction looks like in our family. Let me give you some positive reinforcement here on the pathways you can go down.
Yep.
Right? And so you have siblings as well that kind of followed suit down that, right? And how many siblings?
So I got one brother. He's been clean for 2 years now.
Good for him.
He's doing really good.
Yeah.
But he went down that same path and a lot deeper than I did for about 5 years. And it literally was like watching my dad and my mom and us as little kids, because he's got 2 little kids, like identical situation. I was like reliving the nightmare that I watched all my life growing up. And I was like, man, I cannot believe he's doing this. Like, but I couldn't help him. You know, you got to do it, and you got to be ready, and you know.
Yeah, they say you can lead a horse to water, right? But you can't make it drink.
Right.
They've got to put their mouth down and go drink that water.
Yeah.
Of whether it's sobriety, whether it's working hard, whether it's getting the clarity and self-awareness around addiction.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we had our conversation about addiction. You know, I was addicted to cocaine for over 8 years, and they got over 3 years clean now, you know? Like, God is good, man. I threw that down. And, you know, the similar thing with you is I found a lady, and I neglected her for a little bit in the party stages as well. And then when I threw that away and I was like, hey, put myself in check. Nobody else is going to love me more than me, right? Not even not my mom, not my siblings, not anybody, right? The only one to take care of us is us, right? And when you find somebody that you want to do life with, right? I look forward to the day where I could say I have 4 youngsters, you know what I mean? I don't know if I want that many, but 3 sounds pretty cool.
Two's cool.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
3 gets a little, I mean, I guess it depends on, you know, their personalities, how far apart they are. 3 was cool. My son was a little older, so he was kind of self-sufficient, and you know, he was able to help out a little bit more. But I got 3 little ones that are kind of close in age, 6, 4, and 2, and it's crazy. It's wild.
Yeah, it gives you something to live for, huh?
100%.
Yeah. So you go through all this. I know we haven't unraveled everything just yet, but I mean, people can read between the lines and hear what you're not saying.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're growing up in a van and you're stealing from the Salvation Army, you're jumping in the Frito-Lay garbage dumpster or whatever to get a bite of food, man.
My dad, there was one point where we lived in a bus, an old school bus that was probably like a 1970s bus, and it wasn't big enough. At that point, there was 5 of us, his girlfriend, her kid, me, my brother, and my dad. So he had built a shack on the side of this bus. You walk out, like, you know, the bus doors open up like that. That was our room, like, built off the side of the bus, and it was kind of like just corrugated steel roof, dirt floors, plywood thrown up on the walls. You know, we did have bunk beds in there. But I just remember waking up in the middle of the summer roasting, because I was on the top bunk and the ceiling was only like maybe 3 feet. And all it was that corrugated steel, right? So I'm just roasting and, jump off the bed and land on dirt floors. And it was just like third world country. And we were in a neighborhood. It was a dirt lot in a neighborhood. And it was wild.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is. And I don't regret it. There's no animosity. There's no whatever. It's just my story.
Yeah.
And it's what, pushed me to do what I'm doing.
It's a beautiful story, man. And the fact that you're still here and the fact that you have the mindset you do and you chose at an early adult age, whatever repercussions were already in place, but you said, hey, this isn't my path anymore. Right. And so now you have your kids.
Yep.
And you're an amazing father, man. We were just talking about it at the last investor meetup, right? Where we're at the River Cats game and stuff. And so what is it that you see from your past that you do for them that you wish you had?
Guidance on for instance, my 13-year-old son, I'm already wanting to take him to some of those meetups.
Yeah.
Like Mitch does. Mitch brings his son, 16-year-old son. I love that, right?
Yeah.
So when I seen that, I'm like, I'm going to start taking my boy. He's only 13, but I want him to start, I want to give them the guidance and the tools that they, can use to catapult themselves a lot faster than I was able to.
Right.
I have him working right now. Like, this is his first summer working for me. Paid him $20 an hour.
Could you imagine?
A little rich for my...
Yeah.
It's probably worth about... Levi, I hope you don't see this. He's probably worth about $5 an hour. No, he's a good kid, though. So I paid him $20 an hour to work for me this summer, doing some of the flips and, cleaning up job sites and trying to teach him little things. But, I just, that's it, really, is just giving them the tools and the guidance that they need to be successful in life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that, man. I look forward to seeing him at the next meetup.
Yeah.
That'd be sick, dude. Maybe
Definitely.
we'll get out there on the golf links too, dude.
I'd love he can hit some balls.
Let's get him in, man.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, man. So just to let the world know, you grow up like that. And you mentioned owning a couple businesses. You're doing flips. You're a broker. You have a brokerage and everything like that.
Yeah.
How did you stumble into real estate and business ownership?
So great question. I think it goes back to the way I grew up first and foremost. I wanted stability. I wanted my goal was immediately as fast as I could to buy a house. Right. I didn't know anything else. I just knew that I wanted a house.
Yeah.
And obviously I did go down that dark path, so it kind of veered me off a couple of years. But once I did get sober at 22, I got a job, a 9-to-5, and 24, I bought my first house. And it was, at that point in my life, my mom was on the streets. My brother was on the streets. They were kind of just couch surfing. And I was able to buy a 4-bedroom, 1-bath. And I remember they came and lived with me, and it was the best feeling in the world to be able to put a roof over their head. And when I got the pre-approval, I remember crying. Literally, I just bawled like a baby because I was like, dude, I've done it. I'm gonna, you know what I mean? And it kind of chokes me up right now. But so that was kind of my entry into real estate. But once I got that house, I was like, well, what if I lose this house? I need another one as a backup plan. And so growing up as a kid, I loved numbers. Numbers don't lie. They're challenging. I loved solving the problem. And it wasn't I loved crazy math. I just liked the basic, multiply, divide.
Yeah, there's not a lot of algebra in pre-approving or buying a house. There's not a lot of algebra.
No. But I loved math, and I also loved Monopoly. Right? Played Monopoly as a kid?
Yeah. I play Monopoly now.
So all those kind of the way I grew up, Monopoly, numbers, and just wanting that second home, I ended up crunching numbers on a duplex because I was like, I'll rent out one side and I'll have another side, and just in case I lose this house, I got a backup plan. And so 2 years after I bought the first one, I became an investor and bought my second one. I was 26.
Wow.
And that was in 2011. And you only know if anybody that invested in 2011 made money.
Right.
You know, and it's still making money to this day, but
Yeah, that brings up a very valuable point, man. Were there people in your life when, not just on your first house, but you
Right.
buy the first house, but you go to buy the second house, who was around you? Was there anyone there telling you not to do that because prices were high?
so it wasn't because the prices were too high. I was trying to solidify the fact that, hey, this is a good idea. And every which way I ran these numbers, forwards, backwards, it was a good idea. Like
Yeah.
I was trying to talk myself out of it because it was a lot of money. It was a big investment and I didn't have the money, but I knew that I wanted it and I needed to make it happen. But everybody that I had pitched the idea, hey, I'm going to buy this duplex, was like, no, you don't want to do it. You're going to hate being a landlord. They're going to trash your stuff. They're going to this. They're not going to pay rent. You're going to evict them. And I'm just like, man, I have to stop listening to all these people. And it was family. It was my dad. It was my grandma. It was my, everybody that I was talking to. There was one person that supported it. And he said, and it was my manager at the time. I was selling insurance. He said, you know what? There's money in the ghetto. Go get it.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's on and I was in contract on 2 duplexes at the time. And I ended up backing out of one of them because I got a little scared. And I was like, you know what? Because of all the negativity that people were feeding into my life about, investing, I'm going to pull out of one of them. I'm going to kind of, see what it's like, get my feet wet, and then I'll go buy that one later if it works out. In hindsight's always 2020. That was a terrible idea. I should have bought both of them.
Right.
But
you did buy one.
But yeah, so Carl Salazar, he's now in real estate with me. He's my right-hand man. He helps me run the real estate brokerage, Diamond Quality Real Estate. And the guy's a rock star.
Yeah. Yeah. So. We were actually, before meeting you, and we were just talking about this the other week, we were in contract with him for one of my clients.
Oh, yeah.
And it did not work out. We ended up moving on to another thing. But you said that name, and I was like, oh, man, where did this come from? And I looked back through text messages and emails. I was like, I remember this property. I remember this guy. Totally understand. And totally understand when you have a good agent and you have a good friend. Like, thank God he was there. When I bought my first house back in 2015, I was a second-year apprentice before I got into real estate. And everybody was telling me prices are too high. You're not going to want to buy right now. Blah, blah, blah. All this stuff, right? And I grew up with my parents never owned a home either.
Right.
My mother and father never bought a house.
Our stories are very similar as we talked in the past at some of the meetups and we got to know each other. Yeah, we're kind of from the same.
It's amazing,
upbringing.
Dude. But it's that motivational push that says, hey, man, we're not going to live like that.
Right.
We're going to go down this other direction. We want to offer to our spouse, our kids, our future selves. Like, all of that's really important. And the more you earn, the more net worth you have, the more you're able to give. Right. Like, there's a lot of people that don't have a lot of things, and that's okay. And what they do have is wisdom, right? That's amazing to share. In our world, it does help to have a large net worth where you can donate to the church, you can donate to local sports teams, you could put kids through school, you could put kids through youth camps and church camps, right? All these great things. So, like, they say the love of money is the root of all evil. Well, that's it. That's where we go down to the greed aspect, right? One of the 7 deadly sins. Is it greed if you say, hey, I'm going to earn this so I can help? I don't think so.
No.
Right? Somebody's got to do it. I'd love to carry that cross and go down that path. But going back, when I bought this house, my first house, people were telling me in the trades, man, don't buy right now. Don't buy.
Right.
Prices are too high. My house was $272,000 back in 2015.
Yep.
I've opened 2 businesses and bought 2 different properties with the equity I earned on this house and still have money. Right? Like, what you did is everybody in your circle that didn't have wealth or understand the game of real estate or business or anything like that, they're looking out for your best interest. And that's not something to shy away from. Of course, what they know. But you had one guy, Carl, that was like, hey, man, there's money there. Where do you want to go? Pull the trigger, right? And so I think it's super valuable to listen to other people's opinions, observe, don't absorb, and then knowing the source of where it's coming from, right? If we're looking at 100%. a deal now, or if I'm looking at a deal and I'm like trying to figure out, first of all, if I got to struggle to put the numbers together to make it work, it's not a good thing.
Not a good deal.
Right. But also if I'm like, hey man, I really see some opportunity, I go to our 10 people, right? And say, hey man, here's some of this, here's the numbers, and get some feedback, get some guidance.
Right.
Well, what's the game plan with that? Are you going to burr it? Are you going to flip it? Are you just, what are you going to do? Right. Cause it's not just
ABC plan.
Yeah.
You got to have all the plans and, make sure that there's exit strategy or that it's going to work. The numbers are going to work long-term.
Yeah.
But you just, you got to run your numbers forwards, backwards. And if it makes sense, then it makes dollars.
Right.
Right. So
exactly, man. But I love it, man. So, going down the path on what you're doing now to give back, dude, because I know you have a big heart.
Yeah.
And if people haven't met you yet, at least they get this opportunity to get to know you. So if they're looking to get into real estate and everything, what is it that you do for your people, in this world to give back that great feedback, that great wisdom?
So, as I started to become more successful in real estate and understood the formula, then I wanted to share that with everybody that I knew. And like, for instance, my cousin recently, she joined our brokerage. She got licensed a few years back, and she lived very similar life that I did, right? Well, I wanted to change her life, and I knew I could because my life had changed being in real estate. And so just mentoring, anybody and everybody that's got the will to learn and the motivation and the want and the drive, you can give people a chance, and sometimes that just doesn't work out. They're not wired, you can lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink. We talked about that earlier, but giving back is just trying to bring everybody that I can with me to the top, and on top of that, like I do a lot of housing. So I have a probably 30 units right now, 30 doors. And I would say probably at least 8 of those are like for low income kind of people that I work with, a lot of people on the streets to try to get them off the streets. I work with a lot of programs such as Section 8 and some veteran programs and just people that are basically on the streets. I get them into housing, and I try to give them opportunity to, to take advantage of it and get on track with life. And the sad thing is most of them don't succeed. They go through these programs, they get housing, they, and at some point you got to let them go because they're just, but I do have a lot of success stories too. But I would say probably out of everybody that I've housed from the streets, which is probably in the hundreds at least, I would say maybe 5 to 10% make it.
Yeah. So other ones that do make it, what do you think it is about them that they're able to continue down the right path?
That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe the way that they're wired, what's their driving factor. I don't really know the answer to that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I wish I could say that there's something specific, but I think that there's some mental health issues that just, in this country that need to be, people need help. Yeah. And, I can't give them that side of things. I can just give them housing. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I know you and I are probably a bit similar in this thing. It's like when you have it and you think, like when you really look back at your world and you look back what path you were going down and where you're at now, and just put those two things on paper, right? Whether it's on paper or just in your mind, you could have totally went down the path at 22 to continue to party.
100%.
It's freaking fun.
Yeah.
It's fun, dude. You don't have a care in the world except when you wake up.
Right.
Then you just drown out the noise. You drown out the pain, the discomfort, right?
Yep.
And so you continue going down that for 5 years, 10 years, decades, right?
Yep.
And people live the same life over and over and over again. And then they get to their deathbed and they're like, man, I wish I would have did something different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you said at 22, nah, I'm going to be different.
Yeah.
Right. 5 years sobriety, said, okay, cool. In that 5 years, what'd you do, man?
So that was what, that was when I really started my, I really started my career in, the insurance industry is where I was at. Always been in sales, from selling weed as in high school to ended up in selling phones, right out of high school, and then ended up going into the insurance industry and sales, and then that just graduated to the real estate thing. But wait, I lost the question. I got off track
just
there.
No, it's all good. But just being aware and like looking down. So in that 5 years of sobriety.
Oh yeah, what did I do? Yeah. So I just catapulted, right? I was able to get back on track, know the vision, what I wanted my future to look like, and I was able to buy that first property, and then I was able to buy that rental property, and then I ended up knowing that, okay, wow, I got all this equity in these properties. Fast forward 4 years, I'm like, I'm going to sell them. I got $100,000 in equity. Like, this is the most money I've ever seen, right? And so when I went to sell it, talked to an agent, Dean Rinker. He's actually with Keller Williams. We spoke about this. And he told me, it's going to be X amount to sell your property. And I thought, you know what? I've always wanted to get into real estate anyways. This is a perfect opportunity. I'm going to go get licensed, and I'm going to do it. So we're still in that 5 year period. I got my license. I ended up quitting the insurance industry, full-time agent, like just went for it, and ended up doing 22 transactions my first full year. And I just knew like my future was real estate. Anything that had to do with real estate, like that's where I was headed. So I ended up selling off those properties a few years after getting licensed, and just did the same thing again. Bought a bigger house, bought 2 more rentals, Now
you have the compound effect working for you.
Yeah.
You're able to build that equity, right? You're probably not spending all the rental income. You're probably holding some of that back just for repair costs, let alone, hey, all right, now I'm going to start investing in myself, investing in my future.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And one of the ways I was introduced to you by was talking about your amazing downtown Old Sacramento property.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you own commercial property as well.
Couple commercial buildings. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. The one in particular, man, when we went to the Kings game and we go up on the rooftop and everything, like, so this took a little bit of time. It didn't happen overnight, but you were able to elevate and graduate to where you have 30 units and you have some commercial buildings. Now talk about how that one commercial building really, really sets up a lot of the finances today. Right.
Well, so I actually own the bar business in the commercial building, which is O'Malley's Irish Pub. And, a lot of, I guess in life, you have to figure out the vehicle that's going to get you to the investment world, right? So we do have to work. We have to build our bank accounts. We have to get that money. But then it's like, what do you do with that money when you get there? So I'm using the bar business, that money. I'm using, I'm kind of pulling a lot of different sources of income at this point to fund flips, to, buy more properties. I think I bought like 6 in the last 6 months. Right. And so that building in particular, I get a lot of rental income off that building too, because I have like a tattoo shop upstairs that I lease out, and I've got a little guy that sells like bongs and necklaces. I lease to him. And then recently I got a guy that called me. He wanted to put a camera on the back of the building. It faces the freeway, and he gave me a 10-year lease with $2,000 a month. So, I mean, this is just, the tattoo shop's like $3,000 a month. The bong shop's $3,000. Like, this building is generating a lot of income, and it's money when you're sleeping, right? That's being an investor, and.
So you got into real estate 25, 26? Somewhere around there?
I was 28 when I got licensed. I became an investor at 26.
Right. And you're how old now?
I'm 39 now.
Right. So this didn't happen overnight. I want people to hear this because
does not happen overnight.
he just went from here. No, this 15 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Or 13 years.
13, yeah. And what I also, like, you guys know my story, right? You know what I came from. I came from nothing. There, I just made the right decisions with the money that I made, the right investments. And, it's sacrifice, though. Like, there's big sacrifice in real estate. When I bought that first rental property, 26, I didn't have no money. I was like, how am I going to buy this? I need $25,000 to put a down payment. But I had a brand new truck, or not brand new. It was a 2005 Toyota Tacoma. It was like my prized possession, best thing I ever had up until that point in my life as far as material, items other than the house that I had bought. But I ended up selling the truck, and I had a boat too, and I sold my boat. Those were like, that was like my everything at that point in my life. And I sacrificed because I knew it was going to pay off later in life if I bought that rental property. My numbers were telling me I was going to make $800 a month profit after all the bills are paid. My mortgage payment on my house was $820. So I was able to, in my numbers when I'm running it, I'm like, I'm going to be able to pay my mortgage with that rental property, and I'm not going to have to, And so I knew if I did it and sold it and drove a crappy car for a few years, that I could replace, So it's sacrifice. And to this day, I still sacrifice, regardless of how much money, or there's still sacrifice.
Right. And at 22, sacrificing those friends.
Yep.
Getting rid of them, right,
Yep.
and leaving.
That was a big sacrifice.
I always talk to people about, hey, if you're not at the right table, if your friends aren't pushing you to elevate, whether it's mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, right, whatever that is, if they're not there to push you forward, are they really your friends, right?
Right.
Like our group, we're tight, and we're like, hey, what are you doing? The reason I have this podcast now is because we're at the River Cats, and I'm like, I think I had 2 episodes recorded.
Yeah.
2 or 3 episodes, and I was like, hey guys, in 2 weeks it's coming out, and I wanted to have stuff in the bag, so I wasn't racing. Now we're just doing it, right?
And, it's surrounding yourself with like-minded people. Our group is great. To be honest with you, I was investing and doing things up until a certain point, but Mitch Craighead, right? I met Mitch probably 3 years ago. We were camping, and he doesn't even know it, but he's a huge motivating factor in my investing, and taking it to another level, right? Because I was doing it, but I wasn't like really doing it like full potential. And so when I met Mitch, I probably 5x'd what I was doing prior to meeting Mitch. Right. He told me his plans. He said, hey man, I'm doing this wholesale business. I'm going to dump like $15,000 a month into marketing, and I'm going to just take it to another level. And it was inspiring. I was like, okay, you're right. $15,000 a month. I'm like, that's kind of scary, but he started doing it. And, he's a big motivating factor in taking my business to another level.
Do yourself a favor. Go give him his flowers today. You know what I mean?
100%.
Remind it, because he may not know it.
Love you, Mitch.
Yes, absolutely. Mitch is a phenomenal guy. And, absolutely. He helps me a lot too. Helps me out a lot too. Bobby, Chad, you.
They're Tom, everybody's motivating.
Everybody, dude. You hear people doing some killer things. You're like, wait, am I even supposed to be at this table right now?
Yeah.
Some of these guys are big hitters. I mean, Jason
Pritchard
just bought that massive land deal down in Fresno, and look at them. And he's
super inspiring. Now he's got me looking at like, okay, how can I get a 300 parcel, 78 acre,
right? Like, and that's the thing. You got to be around people. And like I said, it doesn't have to be real estate, man. It could be a bakery. It could be a tax service. It could be a lawn service. It could be literally anything.
Go ahead.
No, you're good.
So 100%. So surround yourself with the people that you want to be like.
Yeah.
You want to be a pilot, go surround yourself with pilots. You want to be a doctor, surround yourself with those people. You want to be a drug addict, go surround yourself with drug addicts. Like, birds of a feather flock together. And, we surround ourselves with our group and like-minded people. And, it's very inspiring and makes us take our businesses and our, everything that we're doing to another level. Look at what you're doing. I mean, this is this podcast is great, man. I'm super proud of you. And
Yeah. It's good, man. God is good, man. I give all glory to him. Like, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him grabbing
I don't think
me.
any of us would be, but
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. But like when I threw cocaine away just over 3 years ago, 3 years, 2 months, it'll be 3 months, 3 years and 3 months next month when I officially quit. Right. I was just talking to somebody from my church 2 days ago, and I was like, you know, at the time I didn't realize it was him. And for a long time I would be like, oh yeah, I did that. Man, without God, I could do nothing. I wouldn't be here. He gave me the breath of life, and I succumbed to the world, man. I did, as did you for those periods of times, and that's okay. Like, that happens. But now we're qualified. Now we're able to be like, okay, well, I have that. I know what that feels like. This feels really good over here, right? And what I want everybody to just know in this world is like, it's okay that you fell down. It's okay to falter. It's okay, like, to suck for a little bit.
Yeah.
But once you get that little thing in your head that says no more, listen to that.
Yep.
Listen to that. You're 22. You leave that friend group, right? Anybody that's going to let you drive drunk, dude, it's not a great friend. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
You know, it's not a great person.
Right.
You know, because they don't care about the repercussions. Imagine, I like to think of it this way. Imagine, so my aunt died before I ever met her. She died in 1987. My Aunt Brenda. Never got to meet her. I only see pictures of her beautiful smile.
Right.
And 1987, she's walking home from work or whatever it is, and she got hit by a drunk driver. And even as an adult, I still would drink and drive.
Yeah.
And I think now I look and I'm like, well, I'm either going to walk, I'm going to take a lift, I'm going to get home safe and make sure nobody else's life is at risk. And when you start thinking bigger and less about yourself and more about the world we're a part of and wanting it to be great, like our group, like our families, like our friends, the world feels different.
Yeah.
The world feels different. Yeah, man.
So on that note, your aunt passing away because of a drunk driver actually lost my mom a little over 2 years ago. She was on a motorcycle, passenger, and she got hit by a drunk driver, and she lost her life as well.
I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, and it's, you know, she was actually doing really well. She was a grandma. She was present in life, in my kids' life, and they loved her. And, you know, it was pretty devastating, to say the least. So
I'm sorry, man.
yeah,
She's watching over you now.
yeah.
Yeah, she's
Yeah,
watching
definitely.
over the kids and
Definitely.
doing her thing. You know what's really great, man, and I see this happen a lot, is that people have animosity to what their parents have done, good, bad, or ugly. And, you know, we have a similar history, and I love my real parents, like, to the end of the earth.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. My father and I, we have a great relationship. We don't see eye to eye, and we don't have to.
Right.
Love him unconditionally. My mother and I, we have two different lives, right? My mom's 21 years sober now.
Good.
Right?
Right
We
on.
live different lives, man. And that's totally okay. I love her unconditionally. And you know, your mom, I'm sure there was a lot of pain as a child and even as an adult. And you're seeing things when you have kids and you're like, maybe, why weren't you there for me like that? Or what was this? Whatever it is that you're thinking.
Yeah.
But just
Yeah.
having that relationship, having that grace, right? You know, like that's really key for people to hear, is like, it's okay. Your parents are your parents. You don't gotta like admire every step they take.
Right.
You just gotta love them. You know.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no animosity. Like I said, it is what it is. And for my dad, actually coming into the real estate world and doing what I've done, it's actually inspired him. So he's doing his thing still, but he's also become an investor along with it. And I kind of brought him along with me, and I think he owns like 6 properties now. So he's doing it. And then as my brother brought him along, so he's selling his first house right now. He's got a couple $100,000 in equity, which is great. And we're going to go get him something else and make him more money. But you know, no animosity.
There.
The past is the past. We just got to look at the future and today forward.
So how did you become the one in your family that So Ed Milet talks about it, and for me, I carry this cross in mind to say, hey, we're going to go down this path.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to go up here. And like you said about your brokerage and your family and everything, you're going to be the one that lifts that up. What does that feel like?
I would say it's a big weight on the shoulders.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the more money, more problems, more, and I never understood that when I was broke, but I do understand it today. Right.
Yeah.
It's almost like there's just it's a heavier weight. You know, you don't want to fail. You don't want the cards to come crashing down. Yeah.
What does it feel like being the one? Knowing you're
Oh,
the
it
one?
feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels good. For sure. Changed the cycle.
Yeah.
You know?
Break the
my,
chain.
My grandparents were, I kind of went and lived, like I said earlier, went back and forth to grandparents' house every 3-4 years. I was able to see almost like a rich dad, poor dad aspect in life, right? So I'd go live with dad, and I always wanted to be with dad because he was,
Dad.
he was dad, right? Didn't care what the conditions were or what it was. It was like, that's my dad, love him, But I was always going back to grandparents' house and seeing a different like side of life and a different, wow, they had a nice house, they had this, we were getting clothes, we were getting fed, the whole 9 yards. So I did see both aspects in life, and that was another kind of motivating factor of seeing what grandma and grandpa had and knowing that that's what I wanted for my kids, my future, and,
So there was the gold at the end of the rainbow, or a carrot in front of you at some point where you're like,
100%,
hey.
yeah.
So maybe that had something to do with the awareness aspect. Like, hey, it's so interesting. You live like that. And then, but you see this and you're like, I want to taste that.
Yeah.
I know I can taste it. Right.
Yeah.
And all they do, this is what I see in this world, is the people that want to go somewhere, they either write it down and they move in action in that direction, right?
Yeah.
Like going back to just the friends, just leaving the friends at 22, man. There's people that don't do that at 50.
Yeah.
There's people that don't do that at 70.
It was pretty hard,
right?
to say the least, yeah.
And how's it feel now? Not even like just boom. Do you even think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I still talk to them, some of them, and it's all good. They're doing their probably the same. I hate to say it, they're still doing the same thing.
Right.
Most of them. A lot of them have got sober, so they're elevating their lives as well. But it was definitely a hard thing to do at 22 when you're like party mode and no kids and
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Well, I super appreciate you having you on, man. And before we let you go, I want to know, what book that you read that really helped open your eyes that you recommend people to read today.
So I'd say this is probably cliche, but Rich Dad, Poor Dad is the mindset is something that it solidified what I was already doing, because I read that book probably 2 years ago, and I was like, okay, I know what I'm doing now is accurate, right? Buying assets, the whole cycle, and not buying the doodads. And so I definitely would read Rich Dad, Poor Dad if you want to change the trajectory and get out of the rat race and,
just like
get
Monopoly.
some financial freedom.
Yeah.
Like Monopoly. It's basically Rich Dad, Poor Dad is Monopoly.
Right.
In real
And
life.
The game Rich Dad, Poor Dad has, right? That's a really good
I have the game
opportunity.
too.
Man, I love that game. It's so good.
We'll
I've
play
only
it
played
sometime.
Yeah, we should, dude. It's a
sure.
great game, right? And that's a great way to introduce it to kids too.
Yeah.
Right? Investing in
I've
in
played
assets.
it with my kids, yep.
Yep. And so that's that little guidance you talked about.
Yeah.
And last question, man. What's one piece of advice you'd give anybody in the world today?
I would say business-wise, I'm going to give two different advices. Business-wise, sacrifice and take the risk. If the money's there, if it makes sense, forwards and backwards, go for it. And I would say in your personal life, just enjoy your family, enjoy your friends, enjoy life, spend the money, and don't have any regrets when you get to the end of the line.
Let's go, brother. I love you so much. Glad to have you on. We'll do it again.
I love you too, brother.
All right, brother.
Thank you.